passed a great health care plan. It's called our Great Health Care Plan. That's the name of it, to stop all payments to big insurance companies and give the money directly to the people so they can buy their own health care, which will be much better, and you will save a lot of money.
Yeah. Donald Trump, yeah, sweating profusely at his rally. You missed the part in that one. You don't see him, but the guy in the background, if you've seen the clips of the guy who was mocking him the whole time, they kind of cut it out eventually. But that's the great healthcare plan, Fives. It's incredible news. I'm sure it's going to come out in 2 weeks. We've been hearing about the Trump healthcare plan for decades. There's a hint in there, which is what a lot of the Republicans are talking about, just giving us money, health savings plans. Like, because you guys know it's easy. You put away $100 a month, and you can afford a 150,000 MRI, 150,000. That's the plan. It's great, but we'll see it in 2 weeks. So I'm not gonna get real warped out in that because you and I all know it ain't coming. But the history of this is big, and we're gonna talk healthcare today, and it's so important. Look, and as I've done my day job a lot, I keep hearing about the affordability crisis and the healthcare crisis, and they're very real. And we have to talk about because the healthcare issue isn't just economic. It's also part of our democracy, and it's a fight right now we have to have. So, I mean, we've been dealing with this for a while, these guys, right? We know how we got here. This is the lunacy of it all. Here's Trump a few months ago talking about prices on drugs.
Did it, but they'll try anyway, because they do lie terribly. We will have reduced drug prices by 1,000%, by 1,100, 1,200, 1,300, 1,400, 700, 600, not 30 or 40 or 50%, but numbers the likes of which you've never even dreamed of before.
Because they don't exist. I mean, look, y'all. I was stationed in Iraq, and a public affairs officer slot in Sticky, and the motto of our shop was, "We write because we sucked at math," and I sucked at math, but I don't suck at math enough not to know that 7,000% decrease isn't a thing unless they're giving you money back. But that's still, they're still sticking that. But this is what they've been saying. They've been saying they're reducing drug prices. They're cutting fraud, and this is where we're at. And we'll talk about it. This is Comer. And look, I get it. His voice, But again, what they've been saying is they've cut SNAP. They've cut healthcare. This is about the fraud. And here it is.
Democrats are kicking and screaming and saying Republicans are wanting to cut social programs. Republicans don't want to cut social programs for people who are truly entitled to receive those social programs. Republicans want to get rid of 100% of the fraud. Democrats don't want to do anything. They don't want to rock the boat.
And that's a lie. And look, if it was about a fraud hunt, I think you actually would have people joining in. I think it would be easy. I mean, states are already doing that. Every time they call fraud on California or Minnesota, when you pull the onion, you discover it's the states that found it and reported it properly. And the only reason these clowns know it exists is because the states are doing their jobs to police the system. They're not doing that. They're just cutting it. In this congressional district that I live in, it's estimated 21,000 Missourians just lost their health care. An article came out this week that showed 1.5 million children have lost their food benefits, $6 a day, since they cut SNAP benefits in the big billionaire bill. They didn't add in a layer of fraud catching. So all these kids are committing fraud who needed food. It's crap. But here's the good news. We got a midterm election coming up. And the midterm election is going to come down to a lot of things. And right now it's coming down to these things. It's coming down to the inability for Americans to pay for things. It's coming down to the inability for Americans to get health care. And it's coming down to who you trust. And this clip is my favorite one of the whole week. And here's Stuart Varney with a Fox News poll.
Polling shows voters want major changes on top issues. Good morning, Lauren. What changes?
Good morning. Well, 4 in 10 want revolutionary change. That shows voters are unhappy and could register their discontent at the polls in November. Voters telling Fox that Democrats would do a better job on 7 of 9 major issues. Pull it up and we'll go from the bottom up. Voters favored Democrats by 22 points on income inequality. Dems are up 21 points on health care. They're up 10 on inflation. They're also leading on the economy, foreign policy, government spending, even immigration. Republicans lead on crime and on national security. Both parties say they are motivated to vote, but 68% of Democrats say they are extremely motivated versus 57% for Republicans.
That looks pretty bad, doesn't it?
It looks pretty bad, doesn't it? Yeah, it does, Stuart. It looks really bad. And the reason is because we've had a year now, year and a half, to watch this clownery and buffoonery saying one thing like Comer, oh, well, we're looking for fraud, and they're not. What they're looking is to screw people. They're looking to transfer wealth from the bottom 20% of Americans to the top 10%. And we know that because the top 10% are doing great. If you remember last week's show, I showed you the clip of Donald Trump saying on TV live that how friend of his, it's always a friend, was never even on a private airplane before, but he was able to afford buying one because of the tax cuts. They're not looking for fraud. They're looking for money. They're looking for money to give to the wealthy, and people are onto it. But what's really scary is people are losing their health care and people are losing their lives. And this isn't a funny thing. This is life and death. So as we approach the midterms, we need to talk about this in that framework. So I'm Fred Wellman. This is On Democracy with FP Wellman, right here live, right Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Midas Touch Network. So glad to see so many of you here. As always, make sure you like and subscribe or send it to your friends. Share it on the Book of Face really fast before so your friends can join you, because this is going to be an important conversation with a smart person talking about our healthcare and what we're doing, and a great group that stepped up to fight back as we head into the midterms. So once again, I'm Fred Wellman. Let's get on the show. Oh, welcome back. I am Fred Wellman. This is On Democracy FP Wellman. I'm so excited to be here with you. Intern Satchel's working his bones off behind the scenes. I'm so glad we're here. Look, today we're talking about something that every American eventually encounters, which is healthcare. A trip to the emergency room, visiting your mom at elder care, like trying to get your prescription drugs. All these things are piling up. Just this week, the Trump administration announced via Truth Social that he plans to impact generic drugs in 2028 with 100% tariffs to encourage manufacturing. Well, anybody will tell you is in that industry knows it takes 3 to 5 years to build a factory to produce a new drug. So somehow miraculously, we're not all going to get screwed in 2 years. That's not thing. But this is not just a conversation about policy. It's a conversation about accountability. Who gets access to care? Who gets left behind? And are elected officials actually fighting for people they're supposed to represent? More than 8 million Americans have lost Medicaid or ACA coverage, while over 1,100 hospitals, clinics, nursing homes, and other providers have closed, cut services, or at risk. The majority of nursing home rooms are paid by Medicaid. This is a very, very serious issue for the majority of Americans. So I'm really excited today. I'm joined by Brad Woodhouse, president of Protect Our Care. He spent years advocating for affordable, accessible healthcare, recently testified for Congress. Lawmakers continue debating major changes to Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act and our nation's healthcare system. And they've got a really cool stuff they're going on right now at Protect Our Care. So Brad, welcome to the show. It's great to have you, sir.
Yeah, I can't believe it. You're so present in all my social media feeds. And here I am on your program. On
I
Midas.
appreciate it.
On
On Midas
Midas.
Touch,
It's
man. The Midas
amazing.
Mighty. I know. Well, we're
It's
glad.
amazing. I'm so thrilled to be here.
I'm like a virus, man. I'm everywhere these days. Yeah, I really appreciate joining us, and I was so glad to have this conversation. I was thrilled to have this conversation when I heard from you guys. You know, it is such. I mean, this is all I hear every day: is people are scared. You know, I talk to my own kids; they're scared. I've got a kid. I'll tell you a true story, Brad. And he lets me tell it. My youngest son was a bartender in Richmond, Virginia, at a really good bar, and he got tired of. He came out. And he said, I want to get a job like a dental clinic or a hospital. And when I asked him why, he said, so I can get health care. Right. And sure enough, he's a med tech. He's a med tech in an emergency room now. He's going to nursing school soon. You know, I mean, we're at a point now where 28-year-old men and women are saying, I need to get a job. That it's just a sad state, and you said very clear, which I love, is that healthcare is a democracy issue. I mean, what's the connection? What's the connection for that? With protecting our democracy and protecting America's access to healthcare. I mean, I love that framing.
Well, first of all, as it relates to democracy or rights, if I were designing the Constitution, if I could go back to whenever that was, 1789, I would have enshrined healthcare as an absolute right for every American. And by the way, our theory is that it is a right. It is a right that every American should have. It should not be a privilege to have healthcare. I mean, healthcare is everything. Healthcare is everything. all the things that you want to do in life, what you want to do with
Yeah.
your kids, the opportunity to travel, the opportunity to live a good life, to make ends meet, to achieve the American dream. None of it's possible if you don't have good health. And to have good health, you need good health care. So, and the other piece of it is, look, I feel like everybody else does that we have an authoritarian in the White House who is violating every norm we've ever known. He's the biggest grifter we've ever seen. He's undermined people's right. He abuses power. He's undermining democracy. But man, I'm gonna tell you what, people are worried about the bottom line. They're worried about their healthcare costs. They're worried about their grocery costs. They're worried about their cost of gas. And I think if we run on those issues, and healthcare is right at the top, and it has been for a number of years, if we run on those issues as Democrats, we can win. And the
Right.
only way we're going to protect democracy is to win elections. And so we got to be talking about the things that the American people care about. I mean, we can't talk about democracy in a vacuum. Democracy is about having the opportunity to gain political power to achieve the results that you feel are important in your lives. And so that means winning elections on behalf of the American people.
Well, I tell you, I was the executive director of the Lincoln Project. I was a Democrat, but I was working for some top former Republican operatives, right? And one of the most interesting things about that job was, being in Park City, Utah during the 2020 election and just, talking to these guys, philosophizing about our approach. And one of the most fascinating things to me was the clear idea amongst the Republican operatives or Republicans that none of your big ideas matter if you don't win elections, right? That in the end, we can disagree on what the policy is going to be at the end, but it's all moot if you don't win elections. It seems like a lot of times we get in our own way as Democrats, don't we? Like, we want to have the perfect solution, and every candidate's got to sign off on that solution. When you and I know it's better to get in the room because the policy is not written on this side of the election; it's written on the inside of the Capitol, right?
Right. And it's like, so, ideological purity, great thing in theory, but in practice, we've got to win elections. And I spend a lot of time watching people just throw in the party and voters who would be aligned with the party, just throwing stones at our own side. Like, they're upset about the Democratic leadership in Congress. They're upset about the Democratic leadership in the Senate. They're upset about Democrats, elected officials across the country. But, those in Congress don't have any power right now. I mean, they really don't. There's a little bit of power the minority has in the Senate, but otherwise, we've got to gain power. And if we gain power and we don't do the right things, then go bitch all you want. Go bitch all you
Right.
want. But we got to gain power, and
And
so we
use
have
the
to
power.
run, and we have to use the power, and so we've got to run on things that the American people care about, and we know that the American people care about this affordability, and we didn't make that word up,
No.
and it's not a hoax. The American people care about it, and KFF, which polls on these issues, found it's been a few months ago now that healthcare was the number one affordability issue. I mean, people were worried about healthcare costs above gas, above groceries, and above rent. So run on healthcare, run on fixing the things that Donald Trump broke, run on lowering prescription drug costs, win the election, and that is what defends our democracy, is getting back into power.
I love that. Circling back to that, as I said in the beginning there, more than 8 million Americans are estimated to have lost their Medicaid or ACA coverage, right? What's driving those losses? I mean, and who's being hit the hardest? Because we heard Comey say, well, it's about fraud. And there's no way 8 million Americans are being fraudulent.
It, it,
I mean,
it's
maybe an optimist.
it's the biggest lie in American politics, and I will tell you what, it is what when they got into a political jam, and they've been in a political jam ever since they proposed the big ugly bill, and
Right.
all the way through that debate, and all the way up until it passed, and then they had to come up with something, right? They had to come up with a reason that they would cut $1 trillion out of Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act and rip away the ACA tax credits that had helped many millions of people afford care. And so they got on this fraud thing. I mean, but it's the biggest bullshit you've ever heard. I mean, first of all, even if there is fraud, look, there's fraud in all types of government programs. Let's go over to the Pentagon and let's talk about Pete Hegseth and his
Mm,
his house. I mean, let's talk about how
yeah.
much fraud there is in defense contracting. Any fraud, there's not $1 trillion worth of fraud. There's not 8 million people, that have lost health care already, and it's going to be millions more just in probably we'll get a new report in the next few weeks that it's millions more than that that have committed fraud. That's the biggest lie. It's an excuse to try to get the political anvil that they put around their necks off before the midterm elections. And the way you absolutely know it's crap is just look at all the fraudsters in this country that Donald Trump has pardoned.
Right.
People that have been convicted of fraud. I mean, and
medical fraud, of Medicaid and Medicare fraud. I mean, like literally nursing home fraud.
I mean, we're talking about the latter day Rick Scotts of the world, who who was fined $1.7 billion for committing Medicare fraud, and as a United States senator for some godforsaken reason. But people that commit these big executives, these hospital executives, these brokers, these big people that committed fraud, and then they go and they give money to a super PAC, they give money to his campaign, they give money to a favored lawyer, and they get pardoned. He's pardoning fraudsters, so that you can't believe for a second that he actually cares about fraud. The fraud's just BS. What they're doing, and look, they did it in the same bill, Fred. It's not an accident. They had the big ugly bill cut $1 trillion from Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. And what did it help pay for? 1.7 trillion in tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans and big corporations. And they did it in the same bill. And then they think they can hide it. They think they can hide it. $1 trillion. Yeah. They think we're all suckers. $1 trillion in cuts to healthcare. And they extended, the whole point of that big ugly bill was Donald Trump did not want to see the tax cuts he passed in 2017 expire. And so they so they cut $1 trillion out of healthcare to fund $1.7 trillion in tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans. And here's what they did. Those 2017 tax cuts that disproportionately benefited the wealthiest Americans, they made them permanent.
Yeah.
Permanent. They were expiring, and they're, oh no, we're not going to have that again. We're going to make tax cuts for Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and the Trump kids. We're going to make those permanent. At the same time, we're going to rip away tax credits that help people afford their health care premiums.
And it's double tap. As I say, it's a double, because we're also seeing hospitals and clinics across the country close, especially in rural communities, even in non-rural communities. The community hospital that I was a young volunteer at, a candy striper in high school, is going to close. And it's right in our metro area here in the St. Louis area. This is bad.
Let me give you one right here in the District of Columbia. And you think, oh, there's no way, right? Right here in the District of Columbia, just this week, Washington National Hospital Center announced it was closing one of its postpartum wards. So it's closing a maternity ward for moms and kids, and postpartum ward. And so that's just going to mean they're going to be fewer beds there for women to give birth. There are going to be fewer beds there to care for women and their newborn child after birth. And they cited specifically the Medicaid cuts from the big ugly bill. And we don't get that all the time. Sometimes, people
him
and the haw about, but we know this one, they cited it specifically right here in the District of Columbia, closing a maternity ward because of the big ugly bill.
It's just monstrous. And for that, let's just do our quick sponsor break. We'll do a quick sponsor break, and then I want to come back. I really want to talk about Protect Our Care and your new campaign. So let's do that. We'll be right back. As always, got a great sponsor with a cute cat picture. We'll be right back. Hey, look, I have an unhealthy amount of pictures of my cat Shugs. Look, I admit it freely. I mean, look at her. Here she is recharging in the sun, because if she doesn't, her battery dies very quickly, and we lose her. So I like to keep taking pictures of her, and that's why we feed her Smalls. Smalls is fresh, human-grade cat food that does so much more than just feed your cat. It helps them live a full and, frankly, healthier, happier life. Now, most cat food out there is made with meat byproducts, cheap fillers, artificial ingredients, basically stuff that is not great for your cat at all. And the Big Pet Food does this because it's cheaper to make. But what they save on cost, you and your cat are paying for with their health. And Smalls is different. Their fresh recipes are made with at least 80% animal protein, and they're gently cooked to retain all their nutrients and flavor. They never add fillers or artificial ingredients. And their food is so healthy that 80% of cat parents who use it say that after feeding Smalls, their cats have better digestion, a softer and shinier coat, and more energy to play. And it's simple. There's a simple reason why. It's actually really good for your cat. So your cat's health and longevity starts with what they eat. So try Smalls. Get 60% off your cat's first order plus free shipping, free treats for life when you go to smalls.com/Fred. As an On Democracy listener, you get this deal for a limited time. I'd love you to take advantage. So last time at 60% off your first order plus free shipping and free treats for life when you head to smalls.com/Fred. Check it out. Shugs appreciates it. I want to keep taking pictures of. I hope you will too. Thanks. And we're back. That was Shugs the cat. It's a long story. So Protect Our Care just launched. I got great. Brad, you gotta love it when you got a sponsor. It's a cat food. That's very controversial. My cat food sponsor. I love it. Protect Our Care just launched Sick of It, the Fix Healthcare Now campaign. What's the goal and why are you launching it now? I mean, obviously, I mean, election coming up, right? I'm pretty sure.
Fred, we've been watching, and you've been watching, and you see, all the races that are going on. You see the anger in the electorate, and we said, we need to. We've been talking about healthcare, and healthcare is a top of mind issue, and people and Democrats have a major advantage on it, major trust advantage on it, major advantage over Republicans in terms of who would do a better job improving American healthcare. But people are also angry about it, and Democrats need to not just be angry at Republicans, but reflect the anger that Americans have towards this healthcare system. So we said we got to meet people where they are. So we said we're going to launch a campaign that the first part of is sick of it. We're sick of what's happening in the healthcare system. We're sick of Republicans cutting it to fund tax breaks for the rich. We're sick of Donald Trump lying about reducing prescription drug costs when all he's done is line the pockets of the big pharmaceutical companies. We're sick of it, and we can't just be sick of it. We got to fix healthcare now. So it's a two-pronged campaign. One, talk about what we're sick of, and really motivate and mobilize the American people to come out and vote on the issue of healthcare. But then we got to make a commitment that we're actually going to do things differently. We're actually going to improve American healthcare. And we have been doing an entire project to find, where are the American people? We want to meet them where they are, Fred, and where they are is the first thing that they want. They want a massive effort to reduce prescription drug prices in this country. There are more people in this country that are affected by prescription drugs in the healthcare system than any other facet of healthcare, whether they're getting them at the pharmacy, whether they're getting them in the hospital. And pharmaceutical companies have been ripping off Americans for decades and decades. They charge us 3 to 4 times more what they charge for the same drug in Canada or in England or in France or in Germany. It's wrong. Donald Trump hadn't done anything about it. Joe Biden in the previous administration finally passed legislation to give Medicare the power to negotiate for lower prescription drug prices, but that only applies to Medicare, and it only applies to those people on Medicare. And so we need to extend those savings out to the commercial market. We need to make $35 insulin available for everyone. We need to massively increase the number of drugs being negotiated with pharmaceutical companies so we can get those prices down. And the second thing that people want is they want to restore the Medicaid cuts, full stop, the whole thing. Restore $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts, and they want to restore the tax credits. And we can go beyond that. There are bigger things that we can do. There are insurance company reforms that we could pursue. There's reforms in hospitals and PBMs, and there's all types of things. There's a myriad of things. But right now, we can't do anything to really solve this health. We can't do anything with those 8 million people that you mentioned that have already lost coverage if we don't restore the cuts, because they've lost the coverage because of the cuts. And so we got to restore the cuts. And then we got to restore the tax credit. So prescription drugs, restore Medicaid, restore the tax credits. Those are the 3 things that we're campaigning on before the election. Now, when we win the election and we get in power, we'll do more than that. But we've got to talk about the things that are doable and the things the American people want. This is the very top of what we found in our polling.
And I really like what you're talking about, because one of my big frustrations with our party is that we have a nasty habit of promising big things and then studying them and getting power, and then getting a commission and a committee, you know what I mean? And voters turn to us 2, 3, 4 years down the road. It's like, where's this big thing? It's like, oh, we're working on it. We gotta get the White House back, and then we gotta get a super majority. It's like what I've been talking to a lot of people is like, no, we've got to go to DC and get shit done right fast. Like when the Democrats take our power back, which we will. I have faith we will do the work and do it. But when we get that power, we're going to have to use it quickly. We're going to have to impact people's lives fast, right, Brad? I mean, that's why I'm hearing from you guys. Is like, yes, these are things are like 100-day plan things, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And look, and we've been, one of the things that we do very well is we are in touch with the leadership in the House and the Senate
All right.
and the people who would be committee chairs, and they're all on board, and they're putting together an agenda. They want an agenda to run on. You got to act fast. But look, Donald Trump's still going to be in the White House. So we got to challenge Donald Trump. He spent about 12 years saying he had a health care plan. You know what? We get the House, we get the Senate, we're going to take him a health care plan. We're going to put it on his desk. And then we can tell him, okay, you got a health care plan, sign this. And he probably won't. And look, we saw this movie before. They tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act in 2017, 2018. We won the House. Pelosi and Democrats in the House passed a whole bunch of healthcare legislation, went and sat in what we called the McConnell graveyard. So it didn't even make it to Donald Trump. And then Joe Biden ran on a bunch of those issues in 2020 and then turned around and got a bunch of healthcare stuff done. He got the tax credits adopted. He got prescription drug legislation passed. He got $35 insulin, got a cap on out-of-pocket costs for seniors, got a cap on, got an inflation rebate, got Medicare drug negotiation. And so we've kind of seen this movie before. We got to set the table up. Now, I think Democrats, and we've talked about this, they should go to Republicans. If we take the House and the Senate, or take the House, go to Republicans and try to get them to come on board. They were feeling the heat last year, Fred. They were feeling the heat.
Feeling it now.
17 Republicans voted to extend those tax credits last year. After they shut the government down over health care, they came back. Hakeem Jeffries, to his credit, filed a discharge petition, got enough Republicans along with Democrats to sign that discharge petition to get an extension of the tax credit on the floor, 3-year extension of the ACA tax credits, and it passed. It passed. It went to the Senate. 17 Republicans for the first time ever that you had that many Republicans voting for the Affordable Care Act. So they're on the defensive, and I think that if we make this a healthcare election, we will win. And if we make it a healthcare election and win, I think some Republicans are going to see the light, and they're going to realize that they need to do more for American healthcare than take it away to fund tax breaks for billionaires.
I think in a lot of ways too, healthcare has been a big part of a lot of, obviously they've tried to get rid of the ACA. They've been saying that for years, but now we're in a situation where they did get rid of it. The dog, essentially, let's be honest, the dog caught the mailman, right? And now there's impact. 8 million people have lost their healthcare. And in my area alone, we're hearing the stories, we're hearing the loss, people losing lives. They're anecdotes. I know part of your thing is tell us your story. I was, look at your website. And these are real stories of real Americans who are losing their healthcare. So in a lot of ways, when we talk about making it the defining issue of the midterms, it always kind of felt like it was an esoteric argument, like we didn't have policy, but now this time, as we go into this, we have a year and a half of a year of the results. And by the way, we also have the roadmap, what happens after the midterm, because this is just the start of the cuts, right? I mean, they timed a lot of the cuts to be after the midterm. We're actually not seeing the real results, are we, Brad? I mean, they've got more coming, don't they?
I think we're seeing enough to impact the outcome of the midterms. Because like you said, we have a hospital crisis watch tracker where we're tracking about 1,100 hospitals that have closed, announced a closure, or have had a cut, like the one that I mentioned here in DC. Or a downsizing, and that affects a lot of people. A lot of those are rural, but they're not all rural. And we have seen, a big reduction in coverage among people in the Affordable Care Act because they could not afford the premiums because they lost the tax credits. We're seeing people that are so worried and confused about the barriers they've been put in place in Medicaid that they're not enrolling in Medicaid. So we already have, and I think this 8 million number, we're tracking it, and we're going to have a report coming out week after next. Going to be more. It's going to go up. It's going to go up a figure. It's going to go from the 7s to the 8s in terms of numbers of people who've already lost coverage. But Fred, that's only part of the story. Remember, there are millions of people who went ahead and signed up for ACA plans, even though they lost the tax credits, and their premiums doubled or tripled.
Yep.
And so that's about 20 million people. And Fred, that's not the end of it. Because because of all the people who've lost coverage, because of uncompensated care, people going to an emergency room, going to a hospital, they're required to be treated, and those costs are getting on. Now insurance companies are raising premiums in 15%, 20% on employer plans or private plans that are not related to the ACA marketplace. So everyone's premiums are going up, everyone's costs are going up. There are jurisdictions raising property taxes to try to keep their local hospitals open because they've lost the Medicaid funding. The only people who are making out as a result of this are billionaires and big corporations. And everyone else every American almost is going to experience higher healthcare costs. Doesn't matter if you're not on Medicaid. It doesn't matter if you're not on the Affordable Care Act. You're going to experience higher costs because you've got to go farther to a hospital. You're going to experience higher costs because your premiums in your employer plan or in your private plan are going to go up because the costs in the whole system are going up because they thought $1 trillion for tax breaks for the rich was more important than healthcare for the entire country.
Yep. And how are you? I mean, are you arming candidates out, across the country with the information they need? Because again, it's got to be local. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
each district is different. Like you said, some are rural, some are urban. Are you guys are you teaming up with folks to kind of inform the electorate, like in
Absolutely.
a larger, more micro sense than a macro
Right.
sense?
Absolutely. So we're in 15 states right now, I think it is, and we have always had a priority on being on the ground in states. And as it so happens, and we switch it up every couple of years. So we're in the states that matter the most legislatively. And it turns out, Fred, the states that matter the most legislatively are almost always the states that matter the most politically, because the ones that matter most legislatively usually are the swing districts, either Democratic swing districts or Republican swing districts or states as it relates to the Senate. So, we're in Wisconsin, we're in New Hampshire, we're in North Carolina, we're in places all over the country. So in those, we're getting very granular with the impacts. And so in August, we're launching an accountability in August as part of the Sick of It campaign. And we will be out all over the country, empty seat town halls in Republican districts, town halls with Democrats in their districts. And we have, very granular information about that district, what the coverage loss numbers are, what the hospital crisis, what the hospital crisis is, what the nursing home crisis is. You go on down the line, we will have very granular reports in those 15 states. And then, any member of Congress that we work with, and doesn't matter where they're from, we can produce a fact sheet for their congressional district that says exactly what the situation is as a result of the big ugly bill. So we're getting very granular. We're getting that information out there. It's available to everybody. Republicans can use it. It's on our website. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Nonpartisan.
we're nonprofit, nonpartisan, so we can get it everywhere. But August is a month about accountability. September we're going to spend talking about these kind of 3 big things that we need to do right off the bat: prescription drugs, restore Medicaid, restore the ACA tax credits. And then in October, we got a 40-stop bus tour all across the country. So
Nice. I love a good bus tour. I did one for Vote
so
Fats, although my
we're
back.
yeah,
I'm lying,
yeah,
actually.
yeah.
It's a long tour, but it's hard and it's
Uh,
worth it. It is showing up. It is about showing up. It's about being present in these
yeah,
districts and getting the attention you need, bringing out the folks who talk about it. It's a lot of
yeah.
work, but it pays off, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, it pays off. And look, healthcare's been a top of mind issue for a long time, Fred. And
Yeah.
Republicans demonized it. They lied about death panels and all that stuff. But it kind of worked for them in 2010, and in 2014 we had a tough election. Healthcare was part of that. We had the problems with the website, and people weren't getting it yet. If you fast forward 2018, after they tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act, we had a healthcare election that benefited Democrats. And the issue has been benefiting Democrats ever since they tried to repeal it the first time. And you're right, they caught the car. They
Yeah.
caught the car this time because
Yep.
they repealed tax credits that are costing healthcare for millions of people and resulting in costs rising. And this cut to Medicaid, it's just unfathomable what that is going to mean. And like you said, these cuts really in Medicaid will really start taking place at the beginning of next year. So watch out. Watch out. You thought your parent was being cared
Yeah.
for in that nursing home. They're coming home.
60% of rooms, right? I think it's
Yeah.
60% of all nursing home rooms are paid by Medicaid right now. It's going to get bad. It's going to get much worse than it is.
And these nursing homes are on small margin to begin with, and people know that, sometimes the care in those nursing homes is tough because of those small margins. They can't survive without
And there's
that
also the
same.
perfect storm. Like I just read an article about how many of the caregivers are immigrants.
Yeah.
And so now they're having trouble I mean, there's a I hate to use the analogy of a perfect storm. There's a perfect storm going on right now of healthcare driving a lot of this, but then you've got the immigration tax, you've got the affordability crisis where gas has gone up. People can't afford anything. Energy costs. Missouri had the highest energy increase in the country last year, 30% energy increase, and our major power just announced another 13% increase. So there's like this storm of like everything is too expensive and it's all collapsing.
It is absolutely an abomination that in a country with this much wealth,
Jesus. Yeah.
people have to decide, am I going to put food on the table, or am I going to have health care? Am I going to pay rent or have health care? Am I going to forego prescription drugs because I can't afford them? And I need to pay rent. And we know it's happening. And look, this is, I said on another podcast recently, if I had all the money in the world, I'd do nothing but tell healthcare stories. Because if if enough healthcare stories are told and they sink in, I think there'd be 90% support. And there's 90% support for a lot. There's 90%
Yeah.
support for the prescription drug changes. And
Yeah.
and so we need to tell healthcare story. And one of them is people who are trapped in jobs because
Yep.
they
Can't
need the
change
health
jobs.
care,
You need the health
can't
care.
change jobs, can't change careers, can't start a small business. And then the reverse. I mean, we have a story, a woman from Georgia who was a small business owner, but could no longer afford the premiums as a result of losing the tax credits and all the other costs that are associated with the big ugly bills cuts to healthcare. So she closed a small business and now looking for work that has healthcare. And
Yeah.
the wealthiest country in the
Yeah.
fucking world.
Yeah. And it's outrageous.
And people
I,
don't get
I,
these
I,
choices.
I was talking to my state rep from my hometown, Kirkwood, and I about 6 months ago, I said, "Hey, when you knock doors, what do you hear?" And he told me an anecdote. He said, "I went to this one couple's home, and the guy was probably 80 years old. And he came to the door, and then he asked him what's on his mind. The gentleman said, first, you gotta get them boys out of girls' locker rooms." Like, okay, so I got it. And then the second one was, you gotta get them boys out of girls' locker rooms. He goes, okay. But the third one was, I'm worried about my prescriptions for my wife. My wife has a medicine that keeps her functioning, and we can't afford it, but 3 weeks out of 4, right? And he
That's where we gotta
said,
meet that voter. That's where
there
we
you
gotta
go.
meet that voter.
And he said, and so, and I talk often of how this is obviously my friend's a Democrat. This gentleman's obviously a Republican, but he told this stranger at his door for another party, like something, and he's 80 years old, which is probably, boomer or greatest generation. He admitted to a total stranger, I can't take care of my wife.
Oh,
I can't take care of my family. She's locked on the couch for at least a week or 2 weeks a year, month, because we can't afford to get the medicine she needs.
yeah.
And I think we got to meet people there. I used to say a lot when I was in my other job, you got get to the third answer. Because we're going to find that we agree on a lot of things. We just got to get to that conversation and frame it in a way that Joe understands. It isn't the boys in the locker room that are
Right.
causing his wife not to be off the couch.
That's
Right.
right.
And
That's absolutely right.
I think it's a great place. So tell us, where can we find more things? What's the one action they can take? Tell us more about the campaign. Tell them where to find you. The Midas Mighty is a very powerful bunch. They'd love to be a part of this.
Protectourcare.org. Also, Sick of It has its own website. I think it's sickofit.org. So you can find us at those places. And I would just say, tell your story. If you've got a healthcare story, and I guarantee you, almost everyone listening has one. They have one of their own. They have one of their family members. They have one of a child. They have one of a friend. Tell those stories. Tell those stories. And where you have a chance to engage a Republican elected official, a member of Congress, really pin them down,
Yeah.
and don't buy the fraud stuff. The fraud stuff is a lie. Fraud
Yeah.
stuff is, it's just a way for them to try to justify what they did. 8 million people, it's going to be 10, 11, or 12 probably in the next month that have lost health care. They didn't commit fraud. They didn't commit fraud. They lost health care because Republicans cut it. But and let's have a healthcare election. I really believe that if we have a healthcare election, we can turn some Republicans around finally, like we did last year on the vote in the House, and we got four senators, including Josh Hawley of all people,
I know
voted for the tax credits, and so
that guy.
yeah, yeah.
You know, I
It was a
can't
little
figure him
cynical,
out, but
it
whatever.
was a little, it was a little cynical because it wasn't going anywhere because
Yeah.
it only gave him 51 votes, and in the Senate you need 60. But that said, getting any Republican vote for the Affordable Care Act was an accomplishment. We got 17 in the House, 4 in the Senate, so we got to keep moving forward. And I think, look, if you disagree with making this a healthcare election, make it an affordability election, because that's the biggest broken promise that Republicans and Donald Trump have made in the last 2 years. Was they ran a whole campaign against Democrats saying inflation this, inflation that. We were recovering from COVID, and we had the best recovery in the entire world, but whatever. They pinned us on it, right or wrong, and then they turned around and they broke every promise. They didn't lift a fucking finger to help people afford their lives. And they just passed Reconciliation 3.0 in the House. $95 billion. What are they spending on? The war and a voter suppression bill. They could have passed $95 billion to relieve people of gas prices, to help people's health care. They don't care about the suffering of the American people. So get angry. Be sick of it. Be sick of it.
I love it. The perfect way to finish, brother. I could go on. We
Yeah.
could talk all day about this. What a
Yeah.
joy having you here, man. I appreciate you. I love your mission. Just keep up the fight, brother, and we'll be right behind you.
Brad, I'll come back anytime. I'll come back later today if you'll have me.
All right. I look forward to that conversation, bro.
All right, man.
Thanks. Have a good one, brother.
All right,
Cheers.
take care, y'all. See you later.
I know. Wow. What a great conversation. We could go all day. I could go all day with Brad. Brilliant. And he's right. Are you sick of it? Are you sick of it? I mean, that's the question you have to ask yourself, because they want you to be. This isn't even all the cuts yet, you folks. This isn't it. And everyone's got a story. You know why I know it? Because you guys know my other job. I'm talking to a lot of people. A lot. And it's bad. It's bad. People are scared. We're Americans. We should be scared every day. People shouldn't be waking up wondering how they're going to pay the bill. People shouldn't be waking up scared because they feel a tickle in their throat. Scared they're going to get sick and have to use that money. Because, folks, we are in a very, very bad place. And the solution is this. Look, the 3 C's I keep talking about, right? Costs. This is what we got with Donald Trump and this Republican and doormat Congress. Costs, corruption, and chaos. And all that comes down to it, and all that fits into it with this. And the solution, folks, as I say, when I'm out doing my day job, is the 4th C is courage. We need courage right now. We have to have courage. We have to elect people with courage. We have to act ourselves with courage. Get in the fight in your local area and your local races. Look, if the only thing you could do for your candidate is grab a pile of their signs, grab 5 of your friends and some donuts, and stand on the side of the busy road during rush hour, great. You just made a lot of impressions for that candidate. But get in the fight. We need your courage to fight back, because there's people in our community that can't. So it's up to us who had the ability to at least stand up, or sit in a chair. I don't care. I went to a protest right here outside my representative Congress's house. Every Sunday they have it. And there's one gentleman who drives all the way in from the city of St. Louis, and he sits in a chair and he waves a damn sign every Sunday. He ain't afraid. He's doing what he can. And it works, folks. It works. We need your courage right now. We need your help. And so I hope you'll take that to heart, because if it's not affecting you now, it's gonna. If it's not affecting you, it's going to affect a friend. It's going to affect your family. There is no way out of this anymore. The Republican doormat Congress and Donald Trump administration have made a conscious decision that the billionaires and the corporations will triumph. They will have the power they want. This whole thing, we're all communists. Imagine saying that. Imagine saying the fact that I don't want to lose my health care. I don't want my friends to die from cancer that was preventable because they couldn't get preventative care. I don't want people to lose their homes because they got sick. Somehow makes me a communist? Are you effing kidding me? Don't fall for the bullshit and call them out when they try it. Because what they want is us to fight each other and not them. Okay? Not them. And so I ask you to take that 4th C to heart. Courage. Courage for those people who are running, who stepped into the ring. Courage for those who are already elected office. Courage to fight those who are there lying to your damn face. So with that, I'll let you go. Thank you for being here on Friday night. As always, I am Fred Wellman. This is On the Mox, FP Wellman, every Friday night. As you can see on the screen, the best place to find information about what we're doing every day is the Substack, fpwellman.substack.com. That's fpwellman.substack.com. As always, thanks to producer Satchel, keeping things moving on the show, and our guest Brad. Find out more about what they're doing at their website. In the meantime, I really appreciate your being here. Lee, we really appreciate you being part of this. We got a lot to go, folks. We're about 100 days out from the election, midterm. Get in the fight, man. We need you. We need you in this fight. In the meantime, have a great week, and I'll see you next Friday night right here on the Moxie.